The prismatic corridors of the Lycian High Citadel gleamed with an austere, geometric elegance, a shifting latticework of colored light traced through every crystalline angle, bouncing off walls and floors of some impossible mineral that sang beneath the footsteps of those who dared tread upon it. Ethan Carter, Earth's envoy, felt every pair of eyes in the corridor measuring him, dissecting the way he stood, the awkward way he tugged at the ceremonial uniform that clung to his frame. The fabric was woven from some cold, unfamiliar alloy, its weight and shimmer designed for spectacle, not comfort. He stood among the Lycian nobles, each one tall and impossibly graceful, their jade-green skin nearly glowing under the corridor's shifting hues. They regarded him with the same analytical scrutiny they reserved for artifacts or weapons, curiosities from conquered worlds. Their silence pressed on Ethan like gravity, as if sound itself was rationed in this place. Behind a mask of studied indifference, they watched the representative from the untamed world called Earth, as Chancellor Meraxis had so pointedly introduced him. Meraxis, all severity and sharp angles, wore a robe of onyx and steel. Her gaze was as sharp as cut glass, and when she spoke, her words cut the hush like a blade. "Observe, honored guests, a protector from a world of chaos," she announced, the phrase lingering in the cold air, both a warning and a provocation. Before Ethan could respond, the great doors at the corridor's end parted with a resonant sigh. Archon Nira entered, her presence commanding immediate attention, even among the most arrogant of the Lycian elites. She moved with a dancer's control, every step deliberate. Her skin, a luminous jade, caught the light and fractured it into pale emerald. Cascading down her back, her white hair shimmered, framing a face both serene and severe, as if carved from the heart of a glacier. Her high collar, composed of interlocking plates of silver and obsidian, caught the spectrum and scattered it in dazzling rays across her shoulders and throat. Nira's eyes, platinum and cold as moonlit steel, met Ethan's for a fleeting instant, a look searching and unfathomable. Then her composure slid back into place like a mask. Chancellor Meraxis gestured with a ceremonial baton. "Archon Nira, the human, is your ceremonial protector, as per the terms ratified by the Celestial Concord." Nira's response was measured, her voice so even that it was difficult to tell if she mocked or accepted the arrangement. "Emotion is unpredictable," she intoned, "but unpredictability can be useful." Ethan caught the subtle tilt of her head, the hint of approval in her posture, and straightened his back, willing himself to appear worthy of his title. For a moment he thought he saw the tiniest glimmer of something, curiosity perhaps, in her eyes. The coronation procession began, the ceremonial drums reverberating through the halls as banners unfurled from the heights above. Lycian nobles arrayed themselves in stately lines, joined by dignitaries from subjugated worlds whose eyes held both awe and resentment. Ethan marched precisely 3 paces behind Nira, the soles of his boots echoing in the vastness, but he felt the undercurrent of tension like a current beneath still water. A Lycian aide's forced smile, a dignitary's clipped nod, each gesture betrayed something simmering below the citadel's surface. They entered the grand assembly chamber, a vast dome wreathed in shifting prismatic beams. Ethan's gaze traveled upward, tracing the intricate webwork of girders and catwalks strung high above the assembly. Suddenly, movement. A shadow detached itself from the gloom. A Lycian assassin, draped in camouflage that blurred the line between flesh and darkness, perched in the rafters, pulse bolt leveled straight at Nira's unprotected back. Time snapped into clarity. Ethan's body moved before his mind could catch up. He lunged, shoving Nira aside just as 3 toxic darts streaked through the air. They struck his back with a sensation like liquid fire. Pain ignited along his nerves, blinding and absolute. The world contracted to a tunnel. Naira, gasping in surprise, the shocked roar of the crowd, Meraxis shouting for the guards. Ethan hit the ground hard, air wheezing from his lungs. The citadel erupted into chaos. Lycian security surged forward, their weapons shimmering with lethal energy. Naira knelt beside Ethan, her hands trembling, her poise shattered. Her white hair fell forward as she bent low, her words nearly lost in the clamor. "Ethan, stay with me? Stay?" His vision blurred, blackness crowding the edges. A faint sense of relief flickered through him. She was unharmed. That was all that mattered. Then, darkness. He awoke in a sterile recovery suite, the ceiling aglow with cold light. Agony radiated through his body with every attempt to move. Machines whispered and hummed around him, Lycian glyphs scrolling across translucent monitors. He turned his head with effort and saw Naira standing at his bedside, her regal composure cracked with real concern. Her hand hovered over his, trembling. "You survived," she whispered, voice husky with disbelief. "The healers said it was impossible. The venom was—" She paused, her lips pressed tightly together. Ethan tried to sit up, a grimace twisting his features. Did they get the assassin?" Naira nodded, silver eyes darkening. "He is dead. But the healers say the poison should have ended your life within minutes." She glanced over her shoulder, and Chief Healer Velis stepped forward, his robes marked by the twin sigils of science and tradition. Velis bowed respectfully. "Your emotional surge, Mr. Carter, appears to have triggered a biological anomaly. Human feelings, fear, devotion, accelerated your healing, neutralizing the venom's effects. Such a reaction is unprecedented." Chancellor Meraxis entered, her expression unreadable. "Archon, your personal involvement in this human's recovery is unusual. We have protocols." Naira faced her with a calm that was almost defiant. "By our oldest traditions, his survival is my charge. The ancient rite of gratitude is clear. I will not ignore it." Meraxis hesitated, then inclined her head stiffly and withdrew. The door slid closed, leaving Ethan and Naira alone. Now, the mask fell away. Naira's hand found his, her touch lingering longer than custom allowed. Her voice was softer, searching. "Why did you endanger yourself for me?" Ethan met her gaze, steady despite the pain. "Because it was the right thing. Because you shouldn't have to die for someone else's ambitions. Because in that moment, nothing else mattered." She studied him, something shifting behind her platinum eyes. "Reckless," she murmured. He managed a wry smile. "Maybe, but sometimes, recklessness is just another word for love." The word lingered between them. Unfamiliar. Electric. Naira was silent, her lips parting as if to speak, then closing. For the first time since he had met her, a genuine smile curved her mouth, small and luminous. "Perhaps your kind remembers something mine has lost," she said. Their hands nearly met, fingers trembling on the verge of contact. In that brief, breathless pause, two hearts beat in unfamiliar harmony, and the Citadel's cold, prismatic world seemed, for a moment, to warm. Ethan's recovery was as swift as it was astonishing. Each morning he awoke stronger, the wounds along his back fading to pale lines far sooner than the Lycian healers had predicted. Word of his resilience, fueled by some enigmatic human passion, raced through the Citadel's corridors, igniting curiosity and suspicion in equal measure. Naira, uncharacteristically defiant, moved him to the secluded heights of the royal spire, officially for his protection, but truly to shield him from the court's ever-watchful gaze. His new quarters, perched high above the city, were elegant yet austere. Walls of crystalline lattice framed sweeping views of Lycia's metropolis, a marvel of geometric precision, shining towers arranged in patterns so orderly they seemed to deny the possibility of chaos. Yet to Ethan, the city's immaculate symmetry felt cold, a beauty stripped of warmth. He would linger at the transparent balcony, watching the shifting hues of the streets below, and wonder if anyone there felt as out of place as he did. Nira visited him often, slipping away from her official duties in defiance of the schedule that dictated every moment of her day. She brought him meals, delicacies from her own table, not the bland, nutrient-rich fare of the convalescent. The first time she entered with a covered dish, Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Shouldn't I have a servant for this?" he teased, watching her set the tray on the glass table beside his bed. "I trust myself more than the staff," Naira replied, a flicker of mischief in her silver eyes. "Besides, it is a convenient excuse to see how your recovery progresses." They ate together in companionable silence at first, then gradually their conversation deepened, turning to the subject of Ethan's miraculous healing. The healers had declared his case unprecedented, an anomaly rooted in what they termed emotional volatility. Naira's expression was skeptical. "They say your body responded with unpredictable vigor. They attribute it to strong emotion, a kind of instinctive self-preservation. Is this typical for your kind?" Ethan laughed, the sound echoing gently off the crystalline walls. "You'd be surprised what humans can do when we care deeply. Happiness can mend. Love can empower. Fear can make you move faster than you ever thought possible." He grinned at her, warmth in his eyes. "We're more than logic and calculation." Naira considered this, her brow furrowed in thought. "Our culture values discipline, mastery over the self. Your approach is alien." "Maybe that's what you need," Ethan suggested, only half in jest. Later, while Naira attended to her official duties, Ethan found solace in his sketchbook. He drew the world as he remembered it, imperfect and full of feeling. One afternoon, Naira returned to find him hunched over the table, pencil scratching quietly. She watched as he shaded two figures, a pair of humans entwined in an embrace, their faces pressed close, eyes closed. She regarded the drawing with curiosity. "Is this a mating ritual?" Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "No, it's not about biology. It's about choosing to share your life. Not for logic or necessity, but because someone else's joy becomes your own. It's partnership." Nira's long fingers brushed the edge of the sketch, tracing the curve of a drawn shoulder. "We join for alliances, for advantage. But you do this for emotion?" "Exactly," Ethan replied softly. "Sometimes you find a person whose happiness matters more than your own. That's love." She was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the paper. "I have never considered such a thing. Our traditions." "Traditions can change," Ethan said, meeting her eyes. Nira's hand lingered on the drawing, her touch hesitant, as if she could absorb the warmth radiating from the image. "It makes me feel something I cannot name." One evening, as the Lysian suns drifted low and cast ribbons of gold across the spire, Ethan introduced her to music, a simple melody from his homeworld, played from a battered device he'd smuggled through customs. The notes filled the room, strange and beautiful, a melody rising and falling with human longing. Nira listened, transfixed. How do they coordinate so many sounds without precise calculation? The harmonics are unpredictable. Ethan smiled, watching her reaction. Through feeling, harmony through instinct and emotion, not mathematics. She closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. "It is not efficient, but it is compelling. I have never been moved by art before." He played another song, letting the notes fill the air, and Naira listened again, her expression growing softer with each measure. When the music faded, she seemed reluctant to break the silence that lingered between them. Their days settled into a gentle rhythm. Physical therapy became an intimate ritual, Naira guiding Ethan through stretches, her hands gentle but firm. She marveled at the roughness of his skin, the way he winced when she pressed a sore muscle. Each session grew longer, the space between instruction and conversation narrowing until she was no longer healer or protector, but companion. "You heal well?" she said, fingers pressing delicately along his spine. "But the scars remain. Do they trouble you?" Ethan shrugged, a crooked smile on his lips. "Scars tell stories. They mean I survived." Naira pondered this. "We strive for perfection. Imperfection is seen as a flaw." He shook his head. "Imperfection is what makes us unique. Each mark, each mistake, it's proof that we lived." She fell silent, her hands lingering a moment longer than necessary. Their closeness became a comfort neither wished to acknowledge aloud. One evening, the sky outside their window blazed with the twin Lycian sunsets, casting molten gold and rose across the city. Ethan retrieved his battered music device and held it out to Naira. "Would you sing?" he asked. "It's an old song, one we sing when we've lost someone we love." Naira's voice was flawless, each note pure and crystalline, but something was missing. Ethan listened, then touched her hand lightly. "It's about loss," he explained. "Imagine someone whose absence would leave you empty. Let yourself feel it." Naira tried again. This time her voice trembled, each note infused with a haunting longing. The sound resonated in the quiet chamber, echoing through the twilight. When the last note faded, the world seemed to hold its breath. Naira stood in the golden light, her jade skin aglow, her white hair haloed by the dying sun. She turned to Ethan, her eyes shining with unshed emotion. "I think I'm beginning to understand what you call love," she whispered. Ethan stepped closer, searching her face. "And how does that make you feel?" "Frightened," Naira admitted, her voice barely more than a breath, "and more alive than I ever imagined." Their lips met in a gentle, forbidden kiss, soft, searching, the barest brush of skin and longing. Hands hovered, not quite touching, trembling with the knowledge of boundaries crossed and worlds upended. In the gathering dusk, something profound shifted between them, an intimacy that was both perilous and inevitable. The citadel remained ordered, pristine as ever, but within the royal spire, a new and beautiful chaos had begun. Ethan's strength returned with a quiet but relentless momentum. Each day his body grew more resilient, his stride steadier, his mind sharper. He resumed his post at Naira's side, clad once again in the ceremonial alloys of the Lycian Protectorate. But now, every moment in her presence was charged with something unspoken, a connection forged in near death and nurtured in stolen moments atop the royal spire. Their days slipped into a new rhythm. To the court, Ethan was the dutiful guardian, always a measured distance behind Naira, silent and observant. Yet in the shadows of courtly routine, their bond deepened with each shared glance, each brush of fingers as they passed a document, each conversation threaded with secrets. At the High Council, the chamber pulsed with cold light and colder ambition. The assembly of dignitaries sat in their tiered alcoves, faces impassive as marble. Chancellor Meraxis presided, her gaze steely, while Commander Jorath, broad-shouldered and severe, loomed at her right. Nira, always composed, carried herself with renewed purpose. As the council deliberated mining quotas and resource allocations, she began to question the very foundation of Lycian logic. "Sector reports from Jarin are, as always, without flaw," droned a bureaucrat, his tone bored. Naira's voice cut through the monotony. "Without flaw? No mechanical failures? No labor dissent? No resource shortfalls?" The chamber stilled. Meraxis's lips pressed into a thin line. Our system ensures optimal output. Systems are made by imperfect beings, Naira countered, her platinum eyes hard. Perfection in every report is statistically improbable. A ripple of unease moved through the council. Ethan, posted just behind Naira's chair, watched the subtle shifts. Meraxis's tight grip on her scepter. Giraffe's sidelong glance at a nervous scribe. There was deception here, buried beneath layers of protocol and politeness. After the council, as the chamber emptied, Ethan fell into step beside Naira. "You're not convinced by their numbers," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No one is that efficient, not even us." They retreated to the privacy of the archival chambers, a vault of shifting crystal and silent shadows. There, beneath the cold glow of data screens, they pored over the Empire's records, mining manifests, casualty lists, resource reports. Ethan, tracing columns of figures with a practiced eye, pointed out the impossible symmetry. "See this?" He tapped a sequence. "Every rotation, casualty rates are identical. And this, output variance never exceeds a single unit. Real data is messy. This is manufactured." Naira leaned in, her brow furrowed. Falsification on this scale would require collusion at every level. Ethan nodded. Or a conspiracy at the top. They worked late into the night, uncovering anomaly after anomaly, messages erased, reports cross-referenced to the point of redundancy, a pattern that became unmistakable. The scope was vast, its precision terrifying. This was no mere corruption. It was a design meant to shield something, or someone, from scrutiny. Naira's hands trembled as she closed a data file. If this is true, the very structure of our regime is compromised. Ethan placed a reassuring hand over hers. "What do you want to do?" She met his gaze, her voice shaking with meaning. "I trust you." He smiled, the gravity of her words settling over them both. "That's the riskiest thing you could say." "Maybe." She swallowed, her resolve clear. "But it's true." Their closeness became a living thing, charged, electric, undeniable. Naira leaned into his touch, her skin warm beneath his palm. Her breath caught, and she closed her eyes, savoring the unfamiliar rush of feeling. "This is madness," she breathed, but before doubt could root itself, she kissed him, a fierce, desperate merging of lips and longing. Protocol fell away, swept aside by the force of emotion that neither of them could name nor resist. In the darkness of the archive, their barriers dissolved. Naira's hands found Ethan's face, pulling him closer, anchoring herself to the one person who saw her not as Archon, but as Naira, fragile, fallible, alive. Ethan's arms encircled her, their embrace a sanctuary against the cold logic of the world beyond. Later, as they lay together on the narrow couch beneath a cascade of silent data streams, Naira traced the scars on Ethan's back. Her fingers lingered over each mark as if memorizing their story. "The court would call this betrayal," she murmured, her voice raw with truth. Ethan turned, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Your people or mine?" She smiled, a sad, sweet curve of her lips. "Both, I suspect." "I don't care," he whispered. Naira nestled closer, her breath warm against his chest. "Neither do I." For a while, the only sound was the hush of data flows and the gentle thrum of their hearts. Outside, the Empire slept in crystalline order, every algorithm humming in perfect obedience. But within these walls, rebellion bloomed, fueled not by hate or ambition, but by love and hope. Ethan closed his eyes, holding Naira as if to shield her from the world, and for the first time since he arrived on Lycia, he felt certain that chaos was not the enemy. Sometimes, he realized, chaos was the beginning of something new. At dawn, As the first pale light seeped through the crystalline windows of the spire, Elder Tyrus arrived, his presence solemn, his eyes haunted by secrets that weighed more than his years. He carried a sealed crystal archive, its facets shimmering with encoded memory, the sigil of the late Empress etched deep in its surface. The chamber was silent but for the faint hum of the city below. Ethan and Naira, still cloaked in the remnants of a sleepless night, exchanged a glance, wary, expectant. Tyrus bowed, setting the archive before Naira. "This was entrusted to me by your mother, Archon," he said, his voice gravel and silk. "To be delivered only when the fate of the Empire stood on the edge of unraveling." Nira's fingers trembled as she touched the seal. With a whispered command, the crystal unfurled, projecting the image of the Empress, her bearing regal, her eyes burning with the wisdom of loss and love. "My daughter," the Empress's voice echoed ghostly and clear, "if you are hearing this, the Empire faces a danger reason alone cannot defeat. There is a rot beneath our perfection, a silent decay our logic cannot perceive. The old prophecies speak of a savior not of Lycian blood, but from the world of unpredictability. Only one untouched by our order, wild, passionate, intuitive, can see through the veil that blinds us." Ethan inhaled sharply, recognition dawning. Naira's gaze darted to him, questions rising in the silence. The Empress continued, her image flickering. "I have arranged for the envoy of Earth to stand at your side, not by chance, but by necessity. Trust the one who brings chaos. Listen to what cannot be measured. Our future depends on it." The message faded, leaving a hush thicker than stone. Naira's voice was a whisper. "All this time, it was never about diplomacy. You were chosen before you ever set foot in the Citadel." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "I never knew. I thought I was just the next name on a list." Tyrus stepped forward, his face grave. "The prophecy speaks of more than conspiracy, Archon. It warns of poison in the star rivers and fading heart fires. I believe it refers to the planetary energy grid, the very veins of Lycian civilization." Ethan's mind raced. Poison in the grid. That's what the reports were hiding. Not just corruption, systematic sabotage. A slow death, masked by perfect numbers. Naira's hands curled into fists. A genocide, hidden behind logic and protocol. How many have suffered while we celebrated our perfection? Tyrus lowered his head. Few know the prophecy. Fewer still understand its weight. Chancellor Meraxis is among them. He has twisted its words for his own ends, orchestrating events from the shadows. He seeks to use the prophecy to secure his power, to claim he alone can fulfill it. Ethan's jaw clenched. "We are truly alone then." Tyrus nodded. "The conspiracy's reach is vast. Its patience is inhuman. Every ally could be a traitor. Every record a lie." A heavy silence fell. Naira's eyes were fierce with anger and fear, her resolve hardening in the dawning light. Ethan reached for her hand, grounding her, feeling the tremor of uncertainty running beneath her composure. "But they made one mistake," Ethan said, his voice steady, eyes glinting with sudden clarity. "They thought human intuition could be predicted like Lycian logic. But we're chaos, Naira. We're wild cards. We see patterns you'd never expect. Move in ways they cannot model. That's our edge." Tyrus looked between them, hope flickering in his ancient gaze. "If you choose this path, you risk everything. The conspiracy will not hesitate to silence you both." Naira squared her shoulders, her spine straightening with a new determination. "Then, we must become what they fear most, a future they cannot control. Maybe it's time to believe in something my people have never valued. Faith without reason." Ethan squeezed her hand, a smile blooming despite the peril that loomed. "Let's give them chaos they can't anticipate." Naira turned to Tyrus, her voice ringing with authority. You've kept this secret long enough. No more hiding. I need the full records on the grid, every anomaly, every unexplained outage. Ethan and I will work from within and without. We will not let this poison destroy us. Tyrus bowed deeply, relief and pride etched in every line of his face. As you command, Archon, I will risk all for your cause. As the elder departed, Naira and Ethan moved to the wide window, the city below glittering with deceptive tranquility. Their minds raced, plotting next steps. Who to trust, how to trace the sabotage, how to expose Meraxis without tipping their hand too soon. Everything feels different now, Naira murmured, her voice raw with emotion. I was taught to trust only what I could prove. Now I have to believe in you and in myself. Ethan brushed a strand of silver-white hair from her face, tenderness softening his features. You're not alone. Your mother saw it, even if no one else did. You're the hope of this empire, Naira. You just need to let yourself be a little unpredictable. She laughed, the sound brittle but real. That's a dangerous thing to teach Elysian Archon. Desperate times, Ethan said, grinning. Besides, I think you're starting to like chaos. She took a breath, her resolve solidifying. I am. I trust you, Ethan, and I trust myself. For the first time. They stood together, side by side, staring into the dawn, no longer ruler and protector, but equals at the edge of a revolution. The city gleamed beneath them, beautiful and brittle, oblivious to the storm that was about to break. Ethan leaned close, his words a promise. Let's show them what happens when chaos and faith join forces. Naira smiled, her eyes shining with hope rekindled. Let's begin. Deep beneath the citadel, Ethan and Naira descended through a labyrinth of sensor-guarded corridors and shimmering security doors, their footsteps echoing in a silence broken only by the faint pulse of power humming through the stone. At last, they entered the chamber of the planetary energy core, a sanctum few had ever witnessed, a place that pulsed with the very life of Lycia. The core had once been radiant, swirling with white brilliance. Now its crystalline flows flickered with veins of sickly green, shadows twisting through what had once been the Empire's heartfire. Healer Velis stood at a control panel, her hands moving quickly over the glyphs as data scrolled by in sickening confirmation. She turned, voice tight with dread. The contamination is accelerating. We have months, no more. If the core fails, every system, every city, every living thing on Lycia will be lost. Naira stepped closer, her jade skin pale under the ghostly light. Who could do this? The core is sealed by the highest authority. My mother trusted only her inner circle. Ethan's gaze locked on the corrupted flows. She trusted the wrong people. This isn't just political sabotage, it's annihilation. Someone wants the Empire to collapse, hard and fast. Velis nodded grimly. There are protocols, fail-safes, but the contamination has bypassed them all. Only someone with master clearance could override so much at once. Ethan's mind raced, piecing together scattered fragments of evidence. The outer provinces. If the core dies, the central power vacuum would let them seize control. It's not just about replacing the throne. They want to break Lycia apart. To rule the ruins. Naira's fists tightened at her sides. So we have enemies not just at court but in every shadow. We're running out of time. Ethan's eyes met hers, a spark of wild determination igniting between them. We need to flush the traitors out, force them to reveal themselves, not by brute force or logic, but by making them panic. Psychological warfare. Naira hesitated, her Lycian discipline warring with her newfound trust in Ethan's unpredictable wisdom. You want to turn their own fears against them. He nodded. We make them believe we're close to the truth. If they think we're about to expose them, they'll get reckless. Naira took a steadying breath, resolve flickering in her eyes. Let's try your way, Ethan. Their first move was subtle. A work of public art unveiled in the Great Hall, designed to draw the eyes of every noble and citizen. Ethan and Naira stood side by side as the veil dropped, revealing a sculpture that was neither purely Lycian nor entirely human. Shards of crystal spiraled outward in impossible geometry, but at the heart of the piece pulsed a raw, organic energy, chaotic lines and bold color, unmistakably emotional. Naira addressed the gathered crowd, her voice resonant. This is a symbol of new unity, a reminder that order and passion must exist together if we are to endure. But hidden in the sculpture's facets were patterns and codes, a riddle of symbols suggesting they had discovered secrets within the core itself. Whispers spread. Eyes watched, some with curiosity, some with terror. Ethan leaned in, murmuring, "Now we wait for them to move." The effect was immediate. That night, surveillance glyphs captured a flurry of activity. Shadowed figures meeting in forgotten corridors, hurried transmissions passing between hands. The suspected plotters, believing their time was short, could not mask their panic. Naira and Ethan pored over the intercepted messages with Healer Velis and Elder Tyrus. "Listen to this." Ethan pointed at a transcript. "They're desperate. They're changing plans, contacting allies they haven't spoken to in cycles." Naira's mouth was set in a grim line. "We're forcing them into the open. Let's push harder." Their next move was a bold public announcement, sweeping new security protocols for the energy grid, with an elite task force reporting directly to Naira and Ethan. Cameras captured the moment as Naira declared, "We will uncover any threat to the core, no matter how deep it is hidden. No one is above suspicion." The conspirators were cornered. In their desperation, they began to communicate in the open, messengers darting through the palace, secret meetings held under the guise of ritual. Ethan and Naira tracked every move, drawing the net tighter. Finally, they set the last trap. Word spread that Ethan and Naira would walk the crystalline gardens alone beneath the twin moons, unguarded, vulnerable, a perfect target. The rumor was bait, carefully seeded and meticulously tracked. On the appointed night, the gardens glittered in the moonlight, rows of glass trees, leaves humming with stored energy, paths winding through fields of living light. Ethan moved with purpose, senses sharpened by adrenaline. Naira followed, every movement precise, every gesture signaling readiness. A ripple of motion in the shadows. 3 figures emerged, masked and cloaked, moving with predatory intent. The assassins fanned out, their blades catching the garden's light. Ethan's voice was steady. "They're here." The attack was sudden. Energy darts hissed through the air. Ethan dove behind a crystal sculpture, drawing his pursuers after him. He remembered every facet of the garden's layout, the hidden security nodes, the pressure plates beneath the moss. As an assassin lunged, Ethan triggered a panel with his boot. A cage of luminous vines erupted from the ground, ensnaring his attacker. He called out, taunting, "You trust your logic too much. This place isn't as predictable as you think." A second assassin circled, blade flashing. Ethan ducked and rolled, luring him toward a reflecting pool. At the last moment, he leapt aside, and the Lycian's foot triggered another trap, a pulse of energy that sent him sprawling. The third turned just as Naira arrived, her presence slicing through the chaos. She moved with a blend of Lycian grace and something fiercer, more passionate. Her strikes were precise, but her eyes blazed with emotion. "You threaten the one I love," she declared, her voice carrying across the garden. "And that makes you my enemy." The words echoed, stunning the remaining attacker. For a heartbeat he faltered, unaccustomed to such raw feeling from an Archon. Nira seized the opening, disarming him with a swift, elegant motion. The confrontation ended as quickly as it had begun. The gardens, once a symbol of serene order, now shimmered with the energy of chaos and triumph. Court guards flooded in, weapons raised, only to find Ethan and Naira standing together, the defeated assassins at their feet, exposed, defiant, and united. Ethan caught his breath, glancing at Naira. They'll know now, the whole court, maybe the whole empire. Naira's eyes shone, fierce and proud. Good. Let them see a woman who has learned to love like a human and fight like a Lycian. Side by side, their hands entwined, they turned to face the gathering crowds. In that moment, Ethan knew their enemies would never anticipate what came next. Together, they were unpredictable, a fusion of heart and logic, passion and precision that no enemy could match. The Festival of Accord transformed the Grand Hall into a sea of radiant color and expectant faces. Thousands gathered beneath the vaults of crystal and light, drawn by centuries-old tradition and by the promise of something new. The energy in the air was charged, restless. On every tier and balcony, Lycians in ceremonial robes mingled with off-world dignitaries, the hum of voices rising and falling like the tides. At the heart of it all, Ethan and Naira moved through the crowd, their every glance and gesture charged with the weight of what was about to unfold. In a secluded alcove, Ethan, Naira, Elder Tyrus, and Healer Velis reviewed their final preparations. Holoprojectors flickered with coded files. Tyrus's gnarled fingers trembled as he slotted the last data crystal into place. "The evidence is complete," Tyrus murmured. "Records of shipments, falsified reports, surveillance footage, every thread connects to Meraxis and his circle. Once the story is told, none will be able to deny it." Ethan nodded, his jaw set with determination. "But we don't just reveal it. We let the Empire see the truth for themselves. The guilty will condemn themselves." Naira glanced at Ethan, her eyes shining with equal parts anxiety and trust. "Are you ready?" He offered a crooked grin. "I was born for chaos, remember?" She smiled, then turned to the assembly, where the council sat in stately formation at the front, Meraxis resplendent but tense, his loyalists clustered around him. As the festival commenced, Naira opened the ceremony with a speech that blended tradition and hope, her voice ringing out over the hall. "Tonight, we honor our past and shape our future. Let us remember not only what we have achieved, but what we must still become." On her cue, the lights dimmed. The vast central holoprojector flared to life, painting the hall with shifting images, scenes from the Empire's storied history, but with subtle distortions. At first, it seemed a celebration, the founding of the Citadel, the rise of the energy core, the unity of distant worlds. Then, the narrative changed. Data streams wove through the images, resource shipments redirected, personnel rosters altered, supply lines thinned. The patterns, elegant and damning, played out before the court in real time. The crowd murmured, their unease building as the timeline converged on the present. The energy core's contamination, the falsified reports, the missing citizens. Ethan watched the council closely, his eyes never leaving Meraxis. The Chancellor's expression hardened, his posture rigid. Whispers erupted among the counselors as the narrative exposed the scope of the sabotage, each data point irrefutable. Tyrus's voice narrated, calm and relentless. "Our empire was built on logic, yet logic alone blinded us to the slow decay at our heart. Only when intuition and adaptability joined reason could the truth emerge." Meraxis's control began to slip. He rose abruptly, voice sharp and desperate. "This is a fabrication. Lies, designed to undermine our order. You will not." The crowd recoiled, eyes fixed on the Chancellor. Cameras whirred, capturing every gesture, every word. Ethan moved forward, calm but unyielding. "The data is yours, Chancellor. Would you care to refute it?" Meraxis's face twisted with fury. "You! Outsider, this was your doing!" He lunged, a concealed weapon glinting in his hand, its energy core humming with lethal intent. In the chaos, council guards hesitated, but Ethan was already moving. He intercepted Meraxis with a swift, practiced motion, locking the Chancellor's arm and disarming him in a single fluid movement. The weapon clattered to the marble floor, its threat neutralized. Velis and Tyrus led a detachment of loyalist guards, their ranks surging forward. "By order of the Archon, you are under arrest for conspiracy and treason," Velis declared, her voice unwavering. Meraxis and his followers struggled, but there was no escape. The court watched in stunned silence as the conspirators were bound and led away, their downfall complete and witnessed by all. When the hall finally quieted, Naira stepped forward to the central dais. Her figure, haloed by the hololights, commanded the room with a serenity and power that silenced even the most jaded counselors. "Our empire will not fall to fear or stagnation," she said, her tone ringing with conviction. "We will build a future where reason is balanced by intuition and logic is guided by compassion. There is strength in order, but there is wisdom in the unpredictable. Let us learn from both." The hall erupted in applause, first tentative, then swelling with hope and relief. The Festival of Accord, meant to honor the past, had become the birth of a new age. In the days that followed, the energy core was purified. Healer Velis and a team of scientists worked tirelessly, their efforts supported by Naira's reforms. The government was restructured, corruption rooted out, and new voices invited into the council, those who valued adaptability, empathy, and courage. The Lysian people, shaken but resilient, began to rebuild with renewed purpose. Ethan, once an outsider, became Naira's trusted advisor, his insight and humanity a guiding force. Their love, once forbidden and whispered in shadows, became a symbol of hope for all Lysians. Together, they attended public forums and gatherings, showing the citizens that reason and emotion could exist side by side. Late one evening, as the city glowed with new life and the air hummed with possibility, Ethan and Naira stood atop the royal spire. The world below was transformed. Its rivers of light pulsed bright and steady, its towers alive with color and laughter. Nira gazed out over her reborn home, her voice soft and awed. "It still feels unreal." Ethan slipped an arm around her, drawing her close. "Feelings are real. They connect us, and sometimes reveal truths logic cannot." She turned to him, fingers tracing the old scars along his back. Her touch was gentle, reverent. "Every scar was worth it," she whispered. He smiled, leaning down to kiss her, the city's glow reflected in their eyes. Everyone. Together they stood in the hush before dawn, scars and hearts bared to the world. The Lysian Empire, once ruled by order alone, now beat with a heart made stronger by love, its future shaped by those brave enough to feel, to trust, and to dream.